I never meant to live a double life. But sometimes, survival means becoming who they need you to be, while quietly holding on to who you really are. My name is Natalie Reyes, and for the past 6 years, I've been two people. By day, I'm Dr. Natalie Reyes, internal medicine resident at Seattle Mercy Hospital, a rising star, they say, sharp, reliable, compassionate. The perfect daughter of two of Seattle's most respected physicians, Dr. David and Dr. Linda Reyes. But at night, I step out of the white coat and into a world of color. In the art world, I'm Skye Monroe, a name I chose for myself, a name no one in my family knows. My paintings have sold in New York, Chicago, and even Paris. The last one went for $1,800,000. And yet, my parents think I've given up on those silly hobbies. They don't know that their doctor daughter is also a critically acclaimed artist. They don't know I've been funding community health programs with my art earnings under their noses. And they definitely don't know what's about to happen. Because in less than 24 hours, a painting by Skye Monroe, my painting, will be unveiled in the hospital lobby, the same hospital where my parents have worked side by side for 30 years. The same hospital where they proudly say our daughter's following in our footsteps. What they don't realize is that I've been walking a different path all along. And tomorrow, our worlds are going to collide. And I was 18 when it happened. I still remember holding that envelope like it was a lifeline. It had my name on it. Not the name my parents gave me, but the one I signed my art with. Skye Monroe. A full-ride scholarship to the Pacific Institute of the Arts in San Francisco. One of the best in the country. I had worked in secret for years, painting at night, submitting under a fake name, building a portfolio they never saw. I came home that day shaking, excited, terrified, but mostly proud. And stupidly, I thought they might be proud, too. I waited until dinner. We were all in the living room, my dad reading a medical journal, my mom sipping wine, TV humming softly in the background. I stood up and said, I got in. Art school, full scholarship. And just like that, the air in the room changed. My dad lowered the journal. He didn't yell. Not at first. He just stared at me like I'd said I wanted to become a circus clown. Then the questions came. Sharp, cold. You applied without telling us? Other everything we invested? You think painting is a real job? What about your MCAT scores, all those pre-med programs? Do you want to end up like your cousin Ethan, still living with his parents at 30? I tried to explain that I'd already sold pieces online, that I had a gallery interested in my work, that this was the first time in my life something felt right. But it didn't matter. To them, it was a betrayal, a waste, a phase I was supposed to outgrow. I remember my mom saying, with that calm voice she uses when she's most disappointed, Natalie, we didn't give up weekends, vacations, and savings just for you to play with paint. And my dad ended it with, no daughter of mine is going to throw away her future on this nonsense. That was it. They didn't shout. They didn't slam doors. But they didn't need to. I went upstairs, shut the door to my room, and cried until I couldn't feel my face. Then I opened my laptop. I typed a reply to the Art Institute. Thank you for the offer. Regretfully, I will not be attending. And just like that, my dream died. But something else was born that night. I created a new email, filed away a different version of myself. And I swore to her, to the artist inside me, you're not gone, you're just going underground for now. Medical school was exactly what my parents said it would be. Brutal. Long hours, endless exams, clinical rotations that pushed you past exhaustion. But what they never told me was how lonely it would feel when you're walking a path that isn't truly yours. Everyone around me lived and breathed medicine. They joined study groups, competed over grades, talked about research like it was oxygen. And me? I showed up, I worked hard. But the moment I stepped out of the lab, I ran straight to my secret studio apartment, rented under the name Skye Monroe. It was tiny. One window. No elevator. But to me it felt like air. The only place I could breathe. I kept painting, mostly at night. sometimes after 30-hour hospital shifts, sometimes when I should have been sleeping or eating or resting like a normal person. But it was never about being normal. It was about staying sane, keeping something alive inside me when everything else felt mechanical. One night, I sent a painting to a gallery in New York. I didn't expect anything. I didn't even sign it with my name. 2 weeks later, they emailed me. "Are you available for representation? Your work is haunting, honest, raw." I reread that email 5 times. My hands were shaking when I replied. "I can't reveal my real identity. No interviews, no public appearances. But I'll keep painting." They wrote back, "Intrigue sells, let's see what you send next." And just like that, Skye Monroe had a gallery, a home for the part of me I couldn't share with anyone. A few months later, one of my pieces sold. $14,000. I remember staring at the email, alone in that tiny apartment, too stunned to cry. I just sat there, paint still on my fingers, and whispered, "I'm not crazy. I'm not wrong. I'm not wasting my life." But no one could know. That same week, I passed my first anatomy practical with honors. My parents called, thrilled. "See," my dad said, "this is exactly where you belong." I smiled into the phone. And then I went back to painting. Because deep down, I knew I was living 2 lives. But it was the only way I could survive. The more Skye Monroe succeeded, the more I felt like I was disappearing. My art was finally gaining real traction. One of my pieces was featured in a group show in Chicago next to artists I used to admire from afar. A private collector bought it for $42,000. The gallery was thrilled. I should have been too. But instead of celebrating, I was charting vitals at 3 a.m. in a trauma unit, pretending none of it existed. When my gallery asked if I'd attend the opening, I typed back, "Sorry, I have hospital shifts, can't travel." They never questioned it. Skye Monroe was mysterious, elusive. They loved that, but I was starting to hate it. I couldn't tell my friends. I had no one to celebrate with. I'd spend nights painting my soul out, only to put it away in silence. And then wake up at 6 a.m. to check labs and answer pages like the perfect doctor. Some nights I asked myself, how long can I keep this up? One time, I tried to tell someone, a fellow resident, Tara. We'd gotten close. One night, after a brutal shift, we sat in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m., dead tired, just sipping bad coffee. She said, "I honestly don't know how you stay so calm, Nat. It's like nothing rattles you." And I almost said it. "I paint," I whispered instead. She laughed. "Like paint walls or like wine and canvas date nights?" I smiled, but my throat closed up. Because how could I explain it? That painting was the only place I felt human. That the girl holding the brush was more real than the one wearing the white coat. Later that week, I got an email. A well-known art critic had reviewed one of my paintings. "Skye Monroe's work cuts with surgical precision," he wrote. "There's something about it, like she knows the body from the inside out." I stared at that line, because he was right. What he didn't know was that the night I painted that piece, I had just finished assisting on an emergency bowel resection. Blood still under my nails. Grief still heavy on my chest. And I went home and painted through the pain. That painting sold for $86,000. My parents, meanwhile, called me that same night to say how proud they were, because I passed another board exam. "Top percentile," my dad said. "See, Natalie, this is why we pushed you." I said, "Thanks, Dad," and then stared at my laptop, at the sale confirmation, the critics' praise, and the name they still didn't know. Skye Monroe, and it didn't know it would be that painting. Not until I walked into the hospital lobby and saw it framed, spotlighted, mounted on the far wall like a crown jewel. My heart stopped. It was mine. The piece I had poured everything into after a 36-hour shift. Back when I was running on caffeine, adrenaline, and silent rage. It was abstract, shades of deep blue bleeding into streaks of crimson and gold. I called it fracture. A reflection of everything I felt but couldn't say. I had sold it anonymously through the gallery, just like always. Apparently, a private donor had purchased it and donated it to Seattle Mercy Hospital as part of a new initiative, Healing Through Art. I wanted to laugh and cry, because suddenly I was standing 5 feet from my truth. while wearing a white coat that kept it all hidden. And then I heard my mother's voice. $2 million? For that? She was standing with the hospital board, arms crossed, eyes narrowed at the painting. I don't understand modern art. It looks like someone spilled paint during a tantrum. The sting was instant. She had no idea she was talking about her daughter's work. My father chimed in. Well, at least it adds some color to the place. But honestly, that money could have gone to new cardiac monitors. I stood silently beside them, pulse pounding. I wanted to scream. That painting paid for the entire pediatric immunization drive this year. But I didn't. I couldn't. Narration continues. That night, I went back to my apartment and just sat in the dark. No painting, no music, just silence. I thought about pulling my work from the hospital. I thought about telling them the truth. But then I remembered what that donation had done. Kids were getting vaccinated. Families who couldn't afford treatment were being helped. And I realized maybe it was enough. Maybe making a difference didn't require applause or recognition. Maybe anonymity was my power. At least that's what I told myself. Until the email came. Subject line, urgent. The Times is asking questions about Skye Monroe. The email came during my lunch break. Subject, urgent. NY Times requesting confirmation. Is Dr. Natalie Reyes the artist Skye Monroe? I stared at the screen for a full minute. No breath. No blinking. Just the sudden sound of everything I'd built starting to crack. Marcus, my gallery manager, had already called 3 times. I stepped into an empty consult room and finally answered. How bad is it? His voice came through tight, fast, panicked. Pretty bad. Someone at the hospital talked. Maybe a nurse, maybe someone from administration. They noticed your shifts never overlap with major gallery events. They've connected the dots. The Times wants a statement by 6 p.m. I looked at the clock, 2:14 p.m. My mind raced. 6 years of building 2 lives. Of hiding, planning, scheduling, deleting, traces. All of it coming undone in a headline? Can we deny it? I whispered. Natalie? I could, but it won't hold. Not this time. They've got someone willing to go on record. I leaned against the wall, the cool tile pressing into my back. My whole body felt weightless, or maybe hollow. Narration. I thought about my parents, about the pride in their voices every time they introduced me as our daughter, the doctor. I thought about how many times I had to pretend success didn't taste like paint and turpentine. I had lived for years walking a tightrope, and now the rope was fraying, fast. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror at home. I had just finished a 28-hour shift. Dark circles under my eyes, paint stains still on my hands from last night. Because even exhausted, I had painted. The studio had become my refuge, my rebellion. The only place where I didn't have to split myself in 2. But now, there was no more hiding. I called Marcus back. Tell them I'll give a statement. Silence, then, you sure? I'm tired of pretending I'm half of who I am. The gallery was packed. Press, collectors, critics. And me, standing outside in the cold, staring at the glass doors like they might shatter if I walked through. I had never been to one of my own openings. Skye Monroe had always been a ghost, never present, never visible. But tonight she had a face. Why? Inside they were getting ready to unveil my newest piece. A large canvas titled Daughter of Both. I had painted it during back-to-back night shifts. Exhausted, raw. Every stroke carried the tension of 2 lives, the surgical masks and scrubs, and the paint-stained jeans. The daughter my parents raised, and the woman I had become. I stepped through the door. The noise didn't stop, but it changed. Like a ripple in water. Marcus rushed over. You look incredible. You sure about this? I nodded. No turning back. Then I saw them. My parents, standing near the center of the gallery. My dad in his usual blazer, my mom in a navy dress, both looking completely out of place. They hadn't seen me yet. I walked toward them slowly, heart pounding. Not from fear, but from release. I wasn't hiding anymore. The gallery director stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. We are honored to present the newest work of Skye Monroe, who for the first time ever is here in person. Gasps, whispers, phones raised. I was just a few steps away from them when the velvet covering dropped. And the painting was revealed. Daughter of both. The crowd gasped again. And then, Mom, Dad. My voice was quiet but steady. They turned. And in that moment, everything stopped. Their eyes widened. My mother's hand went to her chest. My father blinked as if trying to place me. I didn't wait for questions. It's me, I said. I'm Skye Monroe. Silence. A camera clicked. Then another. And still, they just stared. They didn't say anything at first. Just stood there. My mother's eyes flicking between the painting and me. My father, silent, arms crossed, jaw tight. For a moment, I thought maybe I had broken something that couldn't be fixed. Maybe this was the cost of being whole, losing the only people who had ever truly known me, or thought they did. Then my mother spoke. You painted that? Her voice was soft, too soft. I nodded. You donated that to the hospital? Anonymously, I said. The funds went directly to the pediatric outreach program. She blinked. Once. Twice. I thought you quit art, she said, almost to herself. You thought I quit myself, I replied gently. My father turned toward the painting. He stepped closer, studied the lines, the layers, the anatomical precision. Finally he spoke. The structure, the anatomy, it's flawless. I moved beside him. Because I learned it from you, I said. He looked at me, really looked at me for what felt like the first time in years. And in his eyes, I saw something shift. Not full acceptance yet, but something softer. Something open. Narration. The media story broke the next day, of course. Doctor by day, artist by night made headlines. For a while I was everywhere. TV interviews, panels, articles about the intersection of art and medicine. But for me, the real story wasn't about fame. It was about permission. To be both. To exist as a full person. The hospital invited me to help lead a new art and healing initiative. I accepted, on one condition. The plaque under that painting had to bear both my names. Dr. Natalie Reyes, aka Skye Monroe. Because I'm not two people anymore. I'm just me. Sometimes I still catch my mom looking at my work like she's trying to understand it. And sometimes my dad still refers to me as our doctor daughter, with that old pride in his voice. But it's different now. Now they see all of me. Not just the parts they molded, not just the parts they approved of. And maybe they're still adjusting. But so am I. I've spent years learning to stitch together the halves I thought I had to keep apart. Turns out, they were never meant to be separate. Art and medicine, expectation and identity, daughter and self. I am all of it. Oh.